to work like that.
Thanks. So then let's move on to...
Actually, one thing. We have Gulzira saying in Kazakhstan we have a foundation that fundraises, and then they ask up to 50% of the fundraised money from the family. Yeah, that's to me sounds like a very, very bad precedent, because how would you, people that fund that organization, how are you going to tell them as an NGO that 50% of that is going to a consultant? That money should be going to the beneficiaries as much as possible. Okay.
So we'll talk about this next section. Will all be about how do I network with donors. So again, we'll start this with a quick poll. And this is just in your own experience. When I meet a donor, what do? First thing, you meet somebody new, do you give them a proposal? Do you talk about your NGO? Do you discuss the problem you want to solve? Or do you ask questions about the donor's priorities? So let's take a few seconds, and we'll give everyone a chance to vote. When you meet with a donor, do you give them a proposal right off the bat? Do you start talking about your NGO? Do you discuss the problem in the community that you want to solve? Or do you ask about the donor's priorities? So just think about your own experiences meeting with meeting with funders. And we see everyone's gotten a chance to vote here, so let's close the poll. And let's share the results. We see the most popular is asking about the donor's priorities, and then following that is talking about the NGO, your own NGO, excuse me, and then tied with 11% each, give them a proposal and discuss the problem that you want to solve. So,
yeah, that's a very interesting result, and I think it would be interesting to do just a very short exercise and then to discuss that a little bit, because there were a lot of questions about networking and how to approach a donor.
Yeah, and just to look at a few samples of these questions, we see from, we have a question from Natalia who wants to know about key ingredients of effective communications with donors, and also we have a question from Dr. Sindhu who wants to know about contacting donors, so we can discuss that. And I think Eric and I will do a quick...
Just imagine that I'm a donor. I'm a program officer at the Gates Foundation, and Megan is runs an NGO in Kenya. And Megan, we don't know each other, but Megan is coming to my office for the first time and introducing herself.
Hi, Eric. Nice to meet you. I'm Megan.
Megan, so nice to meet you. And I've worked in Kenya for many years, and it's good to meet you. So what are you doing here today?
Yeah, well, I'm interested in talking about my NGO named Cause Zero. We're based in Nairobi, and we do work with water and sanitation issues. We have a very interesting project where we work with the local communities in getting different hand washing campaigns. We're doing a lot of work doing some outreach outside of some of the communities in Nairobi doing water and sanitation issues.
Well, thanks so much, Megan. That's great to know what your NGO is up to. Now, okay, let's stop it there, and then we're going to do the same meeting again, but we'll give it it's a variation. We'll give it a twist. So I'm sitting in the office, knock, knock, knock.
Hi, Eric. Nice to meet you. I'm Megan.
Megan, how are you? It's so good to meet you. And I've worked in Kenya, and so what do you want to discuss today?
Oh, that's so interesting. Our NGO works in Kenya as well. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the Gates Foundation and your priorities in the region? Do you work with water and sanitation?
Yes, actually we do work with water and sanitation. And what you have read maybe on our website is a bit outdated, because we're starting to work more and more with small grassroots organizations that can really have an impact with local communities. So what is it that you do in Kenya?
Oh, that's great. We also do outreach with grassroots NGOs and really try to get to the hard-hit, neglected communities that aren't getting any wash services.
Well, that's interesting. It sounds like your program and our priorities are quite a good fit. Let's discuss it further. Okay, so those are the two variations. And the idea behind that, and I'm quite interested to see, I don't know, can we go back to the poll result? Or,
oh, we're showing that, yeah.
Oh, okay, we're showing the poll result. That a lot of you took as an option, ask about the donor priorities, and it is crucial in my mind. And I'm so glad that over half of you picked that, because very, very often in a first approach with a donor, what you will see is that NGOs will talk about their work, about their capacity, about all the interesting things they've done, enthusiasm about their projects, etc. Now, this is very important, of course, but the most important first step you can take is to learn about the donor's priorities. Because donors, bilateral donors, foundations, and to some extent corporate donors, they have their own goals. They have their own mission. They're not banks just handing out money. No, they want to achieve a goal, or they want to solve a problem. So if I'm a donor that wants to solve water and sanitation issues in Kenya, and a NGO shows up and they're talking about all the wonderful work they do in education, that may already close the door immediately. If I'm the NGO, I want to know very, very specifically what the foundation or the donor is interested in, so I can present a program that fits fits their goals and solves a problem that they want to solve as well. So, and also sometimes you learn, I've had meetings with donors in which they said, well, you know, we're not working in that area anymore, we're doing this and that now, and we've moved away from water and sanitation, we're now in health. And then I know very quickly that maybe that donor is not a good fit for me anymore. So I don't have to waste my time. And often what you see on the website and the reports of donors may be very outdated. And you might know from your own organization that a lot of websites are not updated very often. And I've seen websites that are out to date by 10 years or more. So it's very important to understand what the donor wants, so you can offer a program that that fits that very, very closely, and that's crucial, I think. So that's an important component of the networking.
Yeah, it's sure. And then on a similar note within this, we had some questions on communications, online fundraising, social media. We see questions here from Norbert, who wanted to know about fundraising through social media, and Mugabe, who also wanted to know about NGOs in remote areas and how to leverage social media to really kind of spread the word about their organizations.
Yeah, social media, I've worked a bit with social media. It's not my area of expertise, but I can tell you that at least it is important. The first thing a donor, if they do not know you, will do is Google you. Because most donors sit behind a computer most of the days, program officers, people at embassies and what have you. And if you've approached them, not through a request or call for proposal process, but if you've emailed them or asked for a meeting or what have you, typically they will Google you and they will check your website. So make sure your website is like that, you have one. That it's up to date, that maybe it's available in, if you work in Francophone Africa, but you're approaching donors in the Netherlands, Sweden, the UK, US, what have you. Make sure you have a page in English in those cases, or, you know, sometimes other languages. Because it's an important visiting card, and it's also an opportunity to show the donor that you have a lot of capacity, because if you have good capacity online, it also shows a capacity, or at least the perception then will often be that you will have good capacity, that you're a professional NGO, and that you have good capacity also to implement. And what you want to do with donors is build a sense of trust, because many donors, they want to make sure that if they give you money to implement programs, to solve the problems they want to see solved, that you can spend that money properly, effectively, honestly, etc., and in the time frame set. So that's a very important, the social media component is important. Now, I do know, also with funds for NGOs, we see that, is that a lot of people nowadays, they find information through Facebook. LinkedIn is a very important social media tool for fundraising, because if I know that there is, let's say there's the Ford Foundation in New York, and I think they might be interested, then through LinkedIn I can find people working at the Ford Foundation. I can get their name, I can sometimes get their bio, and then I can probably call or email or Skype them directly and say, well, listen, I understand you're interested in this and that may be a very good entry point. Megan.
Yeah, great. We actually have a similar question from Dania, who just wrote that someone told me it's quite useless to apply for online if you don't have any contacts at the foundation. So I think that's really related to the comments you were just saying about using LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's important. I think if you can create contact, and that networking is important for that reason, because it's and it's not completely unfair, because let's imagine your NGO is hiring somebody and there are two good candidates, one you've never heard of before and the other one that you know very well and like. Then your chances of hiring the person that you know and like are greater if they're both capable people. Because you have to work with that person, you have to build a relationship with them, you have to trust them, etc. So somebody you know will already be a bit easier. The decision will often sway to